Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crusader Kings 3 with the Royal Court DLC. This is going to be a review of the Royal Court DLC at launch. Put about 15 or so hours in the last day or two into this since the patch, and I have to say, despite all the hatred and complaints about the DLC that I've been seeing and hearing, I think the Royal Court DLC was really good. I think it needs some tweaks. Yes, tweaks are needed, but does it make the game better? Yes. Does it mean that you feel like a ruler? Yes. Suffice to say, I think it's one of the better DLCs Paradox has put out in a while. It's expensive. It took them a long time to develop, but it's got good points, and I'll go into some of them. The first one is the Royal Court feature. Yes, it does not have a great camera view. Yes, the people interactions are not unbelievably amazing, right? But you can click through people here. So if you want to see who's at your court, you can do it. You'll get an event periodically that you can hold court. You hold court, you get to make some decisions, people interactions. Sometimes you can get money, artifacts. Sometimes you even get counties. Sometimes you can get vassals. All can fire. Most of the time it costs you money. And it also costs you prestige to start, so be aware of that. It's in generally a drain on your gold, but I really like it because first off, it's more realistic. You did have to spend money to maintain a court in the medieval feudal era, and it's not, the game is no longer just managing money and fighting wars. Now you actually have to kind of control the inside of your country, which I have always thought was something lacking in the Paradox games, especially for the Crusader Kings games, which are a little bit more role-playing than, say, EU4 or Hearts of Iron, where you... Yeah. So the reason grandeur is important. So first off, you have to spend money to maintain your grandeur level. And depending on which court you have bonuses or negatives. So far, I found I like admin and scholarly. Military isn't great. Some of the others, not the biggest fans of them. But scholarly is nice if you need to get more lifestyles and do research. Whereas administrative is pretty nice if you want to basically administer your realm and grow your capital really high. Very viable, very, very strong court. Other ones need to be balanced. So having a level 10 grandeur. It changes, scales up and down. Overall, I found I could usually maintain level 3 grandeur in my different various countries without going terribly into debt. Yes, I didn't have a lot of money to spend on buildings to make my kingdom stronger. But if you think about it this way, a lot of the times what happens in the game is you build all the buildings that you can in your counties or duchies, assuming you know how to make money, which is an entirely different video. Then you kind of are stuck for a while. You just have large pools of money sitting around because you can't build anything. All you can do is hire mercs and go to war, right? Or bribe people to keep them happy. Now with Royal Court, you can get around that. If you look down this thing here, you'll see that courtier guest opinions up. And I can convince de jure changes, which means sometimes I can shift land around in the realm without having to revoke it, which is really nice. And in general, there's a lot of nice bonuses for this. So up here is the effects of what type of court I have, right? Now down here is the effect of the actual grandeur. So this right here gives me prestige. If I have fellow vassals, which obviously since an emperor I don't, I'd get 5. Independent rulers around you get a nice 5 bonus because I'm 3 levels above it. Vassal's opinion goes up. It's very hard to get vassal opinion up, especially if you can't put them on their council. This helps with that. Also, each of these levels has bonuses. This one reduces more stress from feasts, which is nice. This one keeps guests longer, reduces stress gain. Also, you get better artifacts. Some servants here is kind of nice. Makes it harder for hostile schemes to happen on you. Also helps you, oddly enough, with learning languages, because that's personal scheme power here. Overall, it's quite nice. Gives you prestige, gives you stress reduction. All stuff that is useful to spend money on. Plus, if you get it up this high, learning per level of fame is amazing. Other things that I really like with the Royal Court expansion. So that's just the Royal Court overview, right? If we get deeper into it, managing the artifacts is quite interesting in itself, right? So I've got this illustrious artifact here. This just makes different face like me more, gives me piety. They're not as powerful, I notice, as the artifacts in CK2, where you could get like plus 20 learning from books. That's more reduced to stuff like this: monthly diplomatic lifestyle experience and prestige, or this one's a bad artifact, monthly intrigue, a chest. You can put up wall ornaments. Prestige, grandeur bonus. Honestly, the easiest way to get grandeur is through your artifacts. So when you first form a royal court, by all means, get all the cheap, horrible artifacts you can. Or if you're allowed to raid and you'll get tons of artifacts. But other of these, like this one here, short reign duration down, makes my realm so much more stable upon succession. Oh, come on, game. Oh, we can just look here. This one, renowned, army screen, heavy infantry toughness. This one gives me more knights, more renown, more prestige, heavy cavalry stronger. As you can see, this one gives me disease resistance, health boost. Some of these are amazing. This one gives me dread if I wanted to go be a tyrant. Prestige, dread, guest opinion. And that's just the base artifacts. Up here, you get these ones, which are really nice. Powerful vassal opinion, plus 12. It doesn't negate the negative 40 for not being on the council, but it puts it down to 28. And it gives me prestige and renown. Over here, this one gives dynasty opinion plus 6. This one reduces tyranny gained, stuff like that. I really like it. Best stuff, thrones. Look at this throne. Diplomacy per flame, prestige, powerful vassal opinion. Between those two artifacts, I have 22 approved opinion of powerful vassals. Even if they're not on the council, they only have a negative 18 penalty. That is manageable with personal diplomacy. Negative 40 yourself, not really. This means also if they're on my council and they no longer have that 40 penalty, plus 22 to relationships, that helps a lot in keeping your realm stable. I haven't had a succession or a faction in quite a while in this game. Also, with all these new mechanics of improving opinions and stuff, it is entirely viable to rule an empire from a single province. Now, if you haven't seen my guide on how diplomacy is viable, check that one out, where I go into more detail on it. But suffice to say, if we look back at the lineage of this is where I owned all the kingdoms needed to make up the empire before I actually created the kingdoms. You'll notice I only owned one province. I go back further, one province. Go back further, one province. It is very, very, very viable. This one I was in an entirely different area until I regained my starting province here. Very viable. Doesn't have to just be done in Tibet. You can do it almost anywhere else. This means one province, Paris, Ile-de-France, totally viable to do. Byzantines, Constantinople, you could do it. Mainly because you can improve vassals' opinions using the royal court mechanics, artifacts, and interactions. The other great change from royal court that I really like is the cultures. Now, probably know roughly about this, but the key point is if you have 100% acceptance of it, people of that culture don't have a culture penalty against you, which means holding together a realm that has multiple cultures, like, say, Tibet, is extraordinarily way more viable. This has a negative 10 cultural acceptance. Reason partially being, I don't know, is language. So if you can spread the language, or you're somewhere like Tibet where most people speak Tibetan, or India or Greece or whatever, you can get cultural penalty very low. And that's one of the problems before royal court was maintaining a stable realm of multiple cultures. You tended to have to convert. Now, so long as you get cultural acceptance up, which, by the way, will go up to 100 if they're part of your realm and they're intermingling in your realm, you'll get it up there. If they just border you, it takes longer. Right here, intermingling in realm still going up. These guys here, Cultural acceptance is nothing because I don't border them. But once I do, you start getting slow increases like down here. Burmese. Right now, I don't actually have my culture bordering them. This is a different culture down here. This is the Bengali culture. The Bengali culture is going up because they're intermingling. But if I were to go in here and culturally convert this province, then we'd start getting the cultural bordering thing. You can't really see it here, but as you'll see, there's some of my culture up here. That's because I wanted to build cultural acceptance with this culture in order to vassalize them. So I moved them up there, bordering my culture, intermingling realm, vassalage, cultural acceptance. This guy up here, probably one of my more rebellious vassals because of the cultural acceptance penalty. Less because I learned his language, but otherwise it would be 26. So when factions form, it's usually from people you don't have high cultural acceptance from, especially if you've converted their religion, which still is your standard struggle. But now the cultural problems are reduced through the royal court mechanics. The other thing I really like is the fact that you now have court positions. And yes, the court physician and antiquarian are important. You have some of these if you don't have the expansion, but the expansion adds more. You can get Master of Horse. Grandeur, Knight Effectiveness. It's not bad. Knight Effectiveness is so-so, but it helps. Master of the Hunt here increases your chance of getting prestige, reducing stress on hunts. Royal Architect, faster building. It's always a solid thing. More piety if you need to reform a religion. Control if you're struggling with raiders and stuff. And stability of the realm. Cupbearer, chance of stopping murders. Jester, stress. Again, anything in my opinion that allows you to reduce stress or increase opinions of vassals is a good change. And this had a lot of them. There's very little downside I found to this DLC, other than the fact it took ages to come out. And it does cost you gold, so you have to be good at managing gold. But remember that if your vassals like you, and you don't have to start dealing with consistent revolts, right? Then you can afford to spend that gold on other stuff. Now, the downside is, in terms of actually fighting, I only have like 500 troops. So in the event of a civil war that gets out of control, I would have trouble defeating it unless I've got money saved up or I've got alliances. This is where having alliances matter more than just calling them to war, help you keep you stable now. It's kind of nice. Over time, I'll slowly up these. My realm will be a little bit less stable and I'll make more money. Right now, most of my money is coming from church holdings, which is by and large where most of any realm's money comes from. And if we go and track down my person here for court, because these people are part of the court, having stuff like court type, vibrant court, which is a legacy right down here, courtier guest, that'll just base improve their opinion. Having court grandeur above the expected level, positive. Personal diplomacy up. I'm a big fan of using diplomatic methods rather than just wars. You can hybrid the methods easily too. If I wanted to, I could start revoking land, build up my title duchy, have an army, as well as being diplomatic. It would be viable. Hard to do both at the same time, which is a good trade-off. You rarely had diplomatic rulers who were constantly at war, or warlike rulers who were very diplomatic. And Royal Court kind of forces you to choose between them. Also, you get these lovely, nice new interactions. Bestow Favor is really nice because you can create vassal opinion. So say you have a very rebellious vassal, just bestow royal favor. You can get opinion up to 100 rather than just the kind of domestic affairs, which improve everybody's opinion. This, you can target a specific vassal. So say you're the Abbasid Caliphate and you somehow subdue the Fatimids in Egypt, right? Bestow royal favor, you can get the Fatimids to really like you, even though they might not be of your culture or maybe even not of your religion. Because you can get rid of the culture, given time. Religion could be a problem. This will help overcome it. Also, the stewards promote cultural acceptance. Very powerful in creating a stable realm. I recommend if you got nothing else for your steward to do, although collecting taxes is never a bad decision. Promoting cultural acceptance, if you've got, say, your If we wander all the way over here to, say, France, say at the start of the game, you're the Carlings in the early start. Culture down here, they're not your culture. They're unhappy. Or the Basque here, promote cultural acceptance, remove the penalty, reduce the chance of liberty or separatists or independence factions. If you look at here, there are no factions targeting me. I'm an emperor. To be fair, I'm really strong, but that's almost all from my vassals. So Royal Court makes it so that your vassals matter more in your realm by taking away money that you would normally spend on building buildings. Going the whole warlord strategy, having a great powerful county, viable. Also going diplomatic is viable. I like it because it's now allowing me to shift between, depending on if my ruler's educated in military skill, like this guy is, or educated in diplomatic. It balances out. Not to mention that just having the throne gives me diplomatic stuff. Anything that boosts court type, learning +3, anything that boosts stuff like that is really useful. And that changes based off what court you have. It's very powerful. Basically, think of the Royal Court expansion, which I heartily support you getting. And anybody, I think it's a very good DLC. And I have played EU4 Leviathan, and I did complain about that. It's worth getting. It's good. I am very impressed. If Paradox keeps this up, that's good. Because now they have 2 lifestyles that you can mainly focus on. You could focus on military, have a strong warlording thing. You could focus on diplomacy and have a diplomatically ruled realm. Stewardship, I'm not entirely sure how you would have a stewardship run realm. Maybe they'll have a future DLC that focuses a little bit more onto that lifestyle and have vassals' opinions of you go up if you've got, like an administrative efficiency or something. Maybe I should send Paradox a recommendation for that, because that could be a viable lifestyle. If they made a DLC for each of the different 5 categories, that could be a really cool thing. Like learning could promote people of your religion, so you could do a more religious run. Espionage, like intrigue stuff, that would be a lot of backstabbing and dread. Basically, I think it's kind of increased the playability of the game, because when I played the game, the thing that always got me bored prior to this patch was the fact that I had to tend to have to suppress a vassal revolt every generation for like the first 5 or 6 generations until I got so powerful that my vassals would never rebel. Now, as you can tell, with 400, 500 troops, I am pathetically weak. If my vassals wanted to dethrone me, they could. The thing is, they don't want to. And also remember, you also have all the other cultural things. You can reform cultures and diverge cultures. Right here, loyal subjects. Vassals' culture do not consider differing faith or culture while joining factions. You get that, you combine it with everything else. I'm not having any people wanting to split from my realms for independence or anything. Unless I'm a terrible ruler and I start going down tyranny, this realm is stable, barring a succession crisis, which can still happen. It's really strong. Not to mention you get stuff like Himalayan settlers negates entirely the penalty for terrain for developing mountains, which means you can actually have highly developed lands in Tibet. Whoops, wrong one. Development here. This is an 18 development province that originally started at like 5 or 6. It's not on the levels of what India has, but it's viable. You get other ones that negate it elsewhere. Basically, overall, good improvement to the game, makes diplomacy viable, makes managing vassals better, allows for vassalization of realms due to the cultural penalties being able to be reduced or removed. The court itself is not amazing, but the fact that you have stuff to play around that's not just war and not just trying to control your vassals makes the game so much more playable, in my opinion. So that is it for my quick 20-minute review of why Royal Court is really good, why Paradox should keep doing it, and why I recommend you get it. If you guys have any questions, comments, or anything about Royal Court, by all means, put them below. And I'll see you guys in another video. Check out my other Crusader Kings guides or EU4 or other series. Hope to have you in another video. Bye for now.